less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. My name is Jake Green, and today I'm joined by Tim Leslie and his wife, Amy. How are y'all doing?
Doing all right.
All right, Tim. I was told your story by one of our fellow libertarians here in Atlanta, and he sent me some links to what y'all been going through for the past year or so. Can you kind of fill us in on, just give us a brief rundown of how it all started and what's happening?
Yeah, we're in the middle of COVID. People were getting laid off. It was getting pretty scary. Didn't know what was going to go on financially. And we looked around and thought we would buy a piece of property that we could, kind of hold up in, start our farm, raise our family and not be in the city. And also keep the cost of living down to the point where we could survive it regardless of what the economy or what happened with the economy. So we looked into Rome, Georgia, and realized their laws didn't permit what we wanted to do. We looked through Polk County, and there was no laws in there saying that we couldn't do what we wanted to do. And there were actually laws in place that actually, supportive of what we wanted to do. So it was like, great. Met a gentleman, a real estate person, and he goes, well, that property out there that you're looking at floods. I got this other property. It's off of Cave Spring Road. Come take a look at it. We saw the property, had a septic tank in place already. It was fenced in, needed quite a bit of work, had a shed on the property. Everything fit the bill. It was ag land. It's what we needed. So we, Amy, my wife, myself, and our friend Matt bought this piece of property over on Cave Spring Road, and worked on it for a couple months, clearing the land. There was blackberry bushes 12, 13 feet high. I had to actually run them over with my truck to get them low enough to be able to cut them.
You couldn't even see the shed.
Yeah, we didn't know we had a shed on the property until after we started clearing. We found this building. And it's only a 3-acre property, so it's not like it's, a half a mile away.
That's Georgia brush for you.
Oh, yeah. And, we cleared it by hand. We used a push mower, machete. We used a little burn pit because we didn't want to have a big bonfire and catch the place on fire, but we did it. Got it cleared, found out where the septic tank was. We knew we had the lid. We knew where the lid was, but we didn't know where all the lines were, so we had to keep digging and keep
clear
clearing.
One section at a time until we found it.
So once we got it cleared and ready, we had first got a spot ready for our animals. Our animals were over first, chickens and goats and ducks. When we found the septic, we brought the camper over on Saturday night.
And this whole time we have an amicable relationship with the neighbor. He's very excited that we're clearing this lot that has been vacant and overgrown for a decade.
A little over, yeah.
And he is just absolutely thrilled that something's being done with the property. And we talked to him about our goals and we talked to him about our plans, and everything seemed like it was going to be perfect.
So we brought our camper out on a Saturday night. In October, I had leveled the ground in one spot over by the septic line so that I could have it hooked up to my camper. Ran the water lines, hooked up solar, built a solar array because they were giving me a hard time about address and getting power hooked up. So I built my own power. Got the camper out there Saturday night. Got it finished, set up at dark. Monday morning, they were at my gate, code enforcement, asking all kinds of questions. And he was investigating, even though he was acting like he was being friendly. Evidently, the neighbor works for the county.
We didn't know that.
We didn't know at the time. He pulled some strings, and evidently for him, they answer the phone calls for code enforcement on the weekends. They told us that we had to be gone. We had to leave. We printed out the law showing we could stay there. He goes, look, everything looks legitimate. If you don't see me again by Friday, you're golden. It's like, great. It says it in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't see him on Friday. So we thought we were good. Monday morning, he shows back up and he goes, listen, this is coming from higher up. It's not for me. I don't want to do this, but I got a job to do. If you're not out of here by whatever date it was, or Tuesday, I think he said, I'm going to have to write you a citation. So I thought to myself, well, if you can show me where, or I told him, I said, well, you can show me that these codes aren't valid or these laws aren't valid, or what I gave you doesn't mean anything, I'll hook up my camper and go. If you can't, then I'll see you in court. I also asked him, if he thought this was the right thing to do, and if he thought he was following the law. He goes, well, I'm just following orders. And I said, well, they did that in Nazi Germany. That was the last time he made eye contact with me, but he gave me that citation. So
Yep.
What was the citation for? Like, how can he write a citation for something that isn't illegal?
So he wrote a citation. It said he hand wrote in living in camper, but the code violation was for a residential building code violation. So if you're in the middle of building a house, you have to get a SLUP permit that costs $75 on residential land to have a camper there to stay in while you're building your house.
It doesn't mention a camper.
It doesn't say camper; it says trailer.
It says temporary building or
temporary structure,
construction trailer.
Right, and
that's a different thing than an RV.
Yeah, it's a VIN recreational vehicle, which is different than a quote unquote trailer. But the only thing in any of the laws that we read through the entire code that said anything about living in anything was him handwriting it in. It never actually said it in their codes.
And so what's funny is that the line item above the code that he cited us for, it says, unless it is permitted, it is prohibited. But we showed in the code where our land use was permitted.
Right.
So they literally tried to piece together like different codes.
Pieces of different codes.
So, but that was only to smear us to the public. On paper, they cited us with 710.02. And that is the temporary buildings and structures during construction. And what's funny is that the shed that's on the property is technically a temporary building. So technically, according to the code that they cited us, we should have had to remove the shed as well. But
they never mentioned the shed.
They don't care about the shed.
No, they don't care about the barn across the street that's falling apart. That'll eventually be in the road one day. They don't care about my neighbor's siding that's rotting off of his house. But they cared about my brand new camper that was on my property.
Wow. And this was your neighbor who you thought was friendly
Thought he
and
was
going to
cool.
be a friend. And literally the weekend that you move onto the property in your RV, he calls the government.
Yep.
Man.
Calls the buddies. Yep.
That happens so quick.
Yeah. I wish I could get him answers for stuff that quick.
Right.
And what's really sad is so we've moved around a lot and we've been renters. So, our kids have been in different rental houses. But this was property that we bought to build a future and put down roots. So when we pulled the camper out there, I was telling the kids, I was like, this is yours. I was like, nobody is going to be able to take this away from you. And then Polk County was like, watch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Hold my beverage.
Yeah, hold my beer, they said. So they wrote the citation. I had a court date. I went in and pled not guilty. They came back out, or actually before I pled not guilty, they actually, the code enforcement officer and the building inspector decided to show up, which I don't understand why. I just don't know why the building inspector was there other than a show of force. He showed up, or both of them showed up with uniform county vehicles, telling me I had to be gone by Friday. They were going to seize my animals, my camper,
And this was after the citation.
After the citation was written.
Before the court.
Right. And I have a court date. So I explained to them, I said, you guys know what due process is? I said, that's what you're violating right now. I said, you're not doing anything until I go into court. And I assumed they were there to scare me. They're like, oh, if you don't talk to this judge, her name is Christy Garner Cook. Or was it Cook Garner? Christy Cook Garner. I always mix it up. She's going to speed things up and this, that, and the other.
And we'll get you off property sooner.
We'll get you off your property sooner. And I'm like, okay, you guys are full of it. Back out my driveway. Have a nice day. Get out of here. So I go in and plead not guilty. I get a court date of January 27th, which is not even a court date. It's actually like a pre-trial hearing if we wanted to change our plea or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I got time to get an attorney, or at least I thought. So Christy Cook Garner moved my court date up to the day after Thanksgiving weekend, which gave me 4 business days to get an attorney. The same judge they threatened with that would speed things up. I don't own a judge. I wished I did, but I don't know how the building inspector and code enforcement officer can force a judge to. They might have dirt on her. I don't know how they would do that. So when I went into court, I
They
asked,
conspired.
yeah, they conspired, which was definitely a violation of my 14th Amendment. So I went into court and I asked to have an extension. The judge said no. I asked to have it bound and transferred to Superior Court. She said no. I said, I haven't had time to get legal representation. Her response was, you've had plenty of time. You can represent yourself today. So that's what I did.
And he tried to represent himself for the code violation because that's what he was there for.
Right.
And when they couldn't argue the code, they said, well, you don't own the property. And he didn't have any of our documentations to prove ownership because he said it's like if you run a stop sign, you don't take the title to your car to prove you own the car. You just go to answer for the citation. And so he asked for a recess so that me and our buddy Matt, who is our partner on the land, we could meet up there with the documentation necessary. And she absolutely refused to allow us to enter that into the record as well.
Because they didn't want it.
And she made a ruling right then.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like she wants you to provide some type of proof of ownership, but she won't let you go get the proof of ownership.
Well, and I wasn't there to defend my ownership. I was there to defend myself against this residential code
which was
on my ag land.
It was so bogus that they couldn't defend it.
Yeah. You know, I called, as soon as they came out to threaten me, I'm like, okay, I got to call an attorney because I'm going to need help. So a friend tells me, she goes, talk to this guy. He's the best attorney in town. What was his name?
Brad McFall.
Was it Brad?
Yes.
Yeah. So Brad McFall. I called Brad McFall and I say, hi, my name's Tim Leslie. I've got a problem with Polk County code enforcement and I think I need legal representation. This is the beginning of the conversation. He goes, so what's going on? And I tell him, he seems very interested. I recite all the codes to him and all the laws that we had looked up before we even bought the property. He starts writing stuff down, or I'm assuming he's writing stuff down. About 20 minutes into the call, he goes, well, I hate to tell you this, but I work for the county. I'll be the one prosecuting you. And I said, isn't this like an ethics violation? And then he hung up on me. So that was the first attorney. So then I called.
He sucked out a whole bunch of information from you that you would have only given to your attorney and is now using it against you.
Right. Which he didn't even really get to use against me because the law was the law. He just made it to where they wouldn't look at it.
Wow.
Yeah. So the second attorney I call, which is kind of ironic, I asked him right away. I said, do you work for the county at all in any capacity? He goes, no. I said, great. This is my problem. I tell him my problem. He goes, yeah, it says it in black and white. I believe you're right. This should be pretty easy to take care of. So, sorry, my wife's handing me papers. So
I just have the receipt.
She has the receipts. So I tell him everything. He waits till like 2 days before court and says, I am so sorry, but I've got a lot of stuff going on and I can't help you. Now I've been told that he is actually related to my neighbor's wife. And I don't know if that's why he dropped me or not, or if who's involved in the county and he doesn't want to play with them. But no county or no attorney in this county will even talk to us about the situation. I can't get any representatives. I got my state representative. What was his name?
Okay, so
yes,
the first person we called was Trey Kelly.
Trey Kelly. He was the state's.
That's our state representative.
Right. So he basically looks at me and says, I don't know what you want me to do about it.
Yeah.
He also worked for the law firm, the second law firm that dropped me right before court.
But he also was being indicted for his involvement in a hit and run where him and the chief of police, they didn't follow protocol. They didn't call 911
meanwhile, a man was dying in the grass.
A man was dying in the grass, but his friend called him for his help and they kind of like swept it under the rug. So he was being indicted for that. That's worthy of looking up too, because it just kind of shows that the people, the authorities in this area just do whatever they want.
So yeah, perfect example of how things run in Polk County. My wife got pulled over. My son was in the front seat of the car. He's 11 now. He was a little younger. But the law says 8. So my son actually looked up the law, read the law back to my wife and said, no, they recommend 12 or 13 or whatever. He goes, but the law says 8. So my wife's like, you know what? You can sit up front. You proved that you can do it. So she gets pulled over in Polk County. My son and wife both recite the law to the officer who pulled them over for him sitting in the front seat. He's of size and age and perfectly legal. And the officer's response was, around here, we say 13. And would not let her move her car. Yeah, he's around here. We say 13. You're not moving your car till your kid gets in the
He
back seat.
didn't give me a ticket, but he wouldn't let me proceed with my day until my son got in the back seat.
Wow.
Even though he's legally allowed to be in the front seat. So that's kind of how they run things.
How many rights have y'all had violated at this point?
So they haven't shut me up. So my First Amendment's good. I still carry my pistols. The Second Amendment's good. I don't think the Third Amendment would apply.
But we definitely don't feel like we're safe from search and seizures. Or we're definitely, our people, persons, and effects are not okay.
So that would be what?
The Fourth Amendment?
Yeah, Fourth, Fifth,
I don't know. But it's
Ninth, 14th. I'm actually doing a YouTube thing where I'm actually doing constitutional rights for dummies. So yeah, there's been like
you're going to be an
that
expert on that by the end of this.
Oh yeah, there's like 4 of them they haven't violated.
But that on top of violating our rights, they're slandering our family in public forums. They've tried to make it sound like we had some, like we're trying to build a sustainable micro farm, but they made it sound like we had some tent city where we're like burning trash in barrels and have fingerless gloves that we're just warming our hands and that we were dumping raw sewage in our front yard. And
my wife has the screenshots to prove.
Oh yeah, I've got the screenshots, but
You
they
have a
also
septic tank. Why would they even think you're dumping sewage in the front yard?
Because if they can make the public feel
like we're not who we present ourselves to be.
And we still have the Scott E. Tillery, the one who he's a county commissioner who threatened my wife, made the vague threat to be very careful of what she says about him.
He said we don't own the property.
Yeah, he says we don't own the property.
And that we're misleading the public. And I have screenshots of that.
Yep.
And Gary Martin, he said the same thing, that we didn't own the property.
Except he put his personal phone number up so people in town could call him so he could tell the dirt in person without doing it over the internet. And
this is after Scotty Tillery gaslit us and told us that the code didn't say what it actually says, and that they are outdated codes that need to be brought into the 21st century, and so therefore they're just going to act like the way they want the codes to read is how they read. So we knew he wasn't going to be any help. And Gary Martin, he didn't respond to our email at all. He just flat out ghosted us. Marjorie Taylor Greene got the county's side of the story and then repeated it in a town hall that she then posted on all her social media.
And that's after ignoring me for over a year and a half.
After ignoring us.
Multiple emails, phone calls, and even tried to reach out on social media. Never once have I talked to her.
Yeah,
well,
she's got a big following, so that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and our fundraising stopped after she posted the town hall saying that we lost our court case and didn't own the property.
Wow.
And that was after she had her staff tell us that it wasn't her jurisdiction.
And I thought my constitutional rights were federally protected. So it's not a local issue, it's a federal issue. And they kind of ignored that as well.
And Jason Anavatarte, he actually was a person who was involved in the Right to Farm bill. And he ghosted us as well. We tried several different ways, Facebook, emails, calling his office, and we never heard from him either. And
I've reached out to GBI, FBI. I've reached out
Attorney General Kemp.
Yep, Carr, Kemp. I've reached out to Warnock and Ossoff, and I've reached out to every single person. And I even tell homeless people when we're sitting there waiting to get our stuff together. I'll tell anybody who'll listen. But no representative wants to hear it.
But the ones who are running for libertarians, Angela Pence, was running for, she was running against Marjorie Taylor Greene for our district. She was fantastic. She cared. She tried to give us a platform that we could boost our story off of. Chase for Senate. He's been an amazing listening ear. Shane Hazel for governor. These are the people who took time to not only listen, but to retweet or try to get other people involved. And those are the kinds of people that we feel like we need in office, because they're the ones that actually truly want to serve the people.
Yep.
But all the ones that are currently in office have just done nothing.
That's because they're not interested in actually serving the people. That's why. They serve their own interests, and they serve the interests of people around them.
Yeah, they want us to pay them with our taxes so they can do what they feel like.
Absolutely. Well, let's pause on some of the more depressing things real quick. And what were y'all's plans for the property? And like what did y'all want to do with it? And what was your vision for it?
So one thing, the wife and I both have a shared dream, and then we also have our own things that we kind of wanted to get into.
Mhm.
We wanted to have a clean piece of property, no pesticides, no chemicals.
No toxic chemicals.
No
Everything
toxic,
is everything's chemical.
So we wanted to have a completely organic a farm. Have our livestock, chickens, goats, ducks. Have our gardens that are growing naturally.
Where we use our own organic compost.
It was kind of to have a small farm, and we had a handful of ideas for some products that are farm related that we wanted to get building or start working on. We also wanted to build our house at some point once the business got up off the ground.
We wanted a natural pool.
Yeah, little fish pond, natural pool where I could recycle the water to go back into the garden. To waste nothing, recycle everything, and not a completely closed loop system, but something that we could actually have something to sell to the public. That's actually healthy and not just looks pretty, but
and help people not just for profit sales, but also to give back to the community because it's a poor community.
Yeah, this is one of the poor areas in Georgia.
And we could say that because we're poor.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Man, y'all sound like you'd be ideal neighbors to live next to.
Well, thank you.
It's flabbergasting that somebody would, within 2 days, call the government on you just because they didn't like the RV.
Well, yeah. and he could have came over and talked to me. We've had a pretty good relationship, joking around before all that. If he didn't want to see my camper, so after they started coming over to visit, he actually came over to the fence and blew up at me, started cussing, and I had my daughter with me. And I asked him, I said, Paul, regardless of what you think is legal or not legal, I said, would you like me to put up a privacy fence? And he never would answer the question. It's because he wants to control what's going on my property, not.
But wood was so expensive back then.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't say yes, because I probably couldn't have built the fence fast enough. But
yeah, so we always intended to build a forever home, but we definitely planned on taking our time. Like we saw the second and third order effects of the pandemic. We knew there was going to be shortages. We knew that there would be inflation. We knew that these were obstacles that we were going to have to overcome. So we wanted to be as tight and sustainable and self-sufficient as possible. And we knew we couldn't float rent, but keep in mind that they kicked us off the property we were paying for when there was an eviction moratorium.
Yeah, you couldn't find a place to rent.
And they weren't even kicking out non-paying tenants.
4 days before Christmas. Good luck. Find a place to live.
Wow.
So, and one of the reasons that we picked that location is because it's really close to Cave Spring. And Cave Spring does multiple festivals and farmers markets a year. So it's like 8 minutes away from there.
Oh,
and then
perfect.
we also, so we could just be constantly involved in the local community. And we love that area. We love going to the spring, and there's a pool, the spring-fed pool down in Cave Spring. Our kids love it there. It's so cold. And it's far enough away from town where you don't feel like, you're in an HOA, but then it's close enough that it's convenient. So it's really, really nice. There's a Tractor Supply and a Home Depot 6 miles in one direction, which is like pretty much where half of our money goes.
Well, the other half goes for gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. We live about 3 minutes from a Home Depot, and I'm there 2 or 3 times a day, every day.
Yeah. Love their scrap wood pile.
So what's next? What's your next move? What's coming next in this sequence?
I think the only thing that we have left that we can do is to sue the county.
But we can't do that yet.
Yeah.
And so we have to settle our damages. So every day that we're not back on the property, we're still suffering damages. So we've been advised that before we start a lawsuit, we have to get a real estate attorney to help us get back on the property. That way we don't leave damages on the table. So I don't know if that's sound advice. That's what we've been told.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
And
don't know if they'll let us. But also, they can't stop me. They might be able to kick me off of it, but they can't stop me from going back to it.
very true.
Yeah. And they expect us to maintain it. So we don't own the property allegedly, but
We're there.
the Polk County Animal Control calls to cell phone
Yeah. They got my number on speed dial.
because they know that that's our property and the goats are ours. So
Wow. Talk
yeah.
about the goats. I heard you had a problem with the goats this week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got a call.
Well, at first I got threatened by.
Yeah, so a prelude to the goat situation. My wife was threatened by a county commissioner on Facebook, our little local vent page.
Because
Be
he
very
said
careful.
we didn't own the property again, and I called him out.
Yeah, he said we didn't own the property, and she had to be very careful what she said about him. Basically, after that she told him he was a fraud and a liar. But anyhow, Thursday I get a call saying that our goats are out. So I call the wife. The wife runs down there. The goats are in the fence. I get a call shortly later saying that the director, I don't have his name off the top of my head, but wanted to speak with us. And I called and left him a voicemail. He called me back and said, listen, I'm going to have to fine you for your goats getting out. It's $250. He said, I can fine you per goat, $250, but I'm being a good guy and only charging you for one.
Real good guy.
Yeah, real good guy. And that the county commissioner had complaints. And I thought it was kind of ironic that the county commissioner had just made threats and now he's involved in my goats being out. So he tells me that if I can pay the fine or if I get rid of my goats, he'll get rid of the fine before I have to go to court. I rebutted with, if I build an enclosure that they can't get out of, would you get rid of the ticket? And he said he'd have to see. And I still don't know that the goats were actually out. But
and they're fully aware of our situation. Like the only reason we're not there taking care of them is because they forced us off our land, so we can't be there 24/7.
Right.
So we built a 3,000. It's actually 3,200 square foot enclosure and some heavy growth that they can chew on for quite a while. About $800, and I don't know. We have in 2.5 days worth of work, we put about 20 hours in.
Yeah. That's why
Total.
That's why we look.
Well, actually, if you almost 50 hours if you do man hours per person.
Jeez.
Excuse me.
It's just one thing after the other, and yeah, it doesn't really help at all that you can't be there to tend to the property, so things start happening on the property.
Oh yeah, because if the goats get out and we're there, we say, oh my God, there's a break in the fence, or they can get out in this spot. Let's go repair, fix, maintain.
Right.
We do have a trail cam that has shown some places where they have gotten out, so we have fixed those areas in the fence. But they're goats; they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
And if we had been there this whole time, that was our plan: was clear a section, fix a section, and we could do it in the evenings after he got off work.
Yeah, I recently had 55 hatchlings plus some bought chickens murdered overnight by fox and or possum.
And a raccoon.
And a raccoon. We caught the raccoon. We caught the possum. We haven't caught the fox yet. But those are chickens that we raised till they got old enough to lay eggs. We bred those chickens. We hatched those eggs. We got those chickens big enough to be out in the environment. And then, 2 days later, they're gone.
Wow.
If we were there, our dog was barking, I guarantee the fox would not have eaten all of our chickens.
Absolutely. Wow. I don't. Some of you hear these stories sometimes, and it's just sometimes leaves you speechless. Like how the government can just screw somebody over so badly. Like it's unbelievable, and like it's so underhanded and sneaky and deceitful. Like citing you for things that you didn't do, requiring evidence that wasn't even part of the trial. That like none of this makes any sense logically, but they're still doing it, and it's a travesty. Like
it's how they do things in Polk County.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Our police chief actually, for the first, I think 4 or 5 years, didn't even have an oath of office signed, and when they did a Freedom of Information Act to see it, he signed it himself. So I don't know if he's gotten that fixed since then, but so technically he was pretending to be an officer for 5 years.
That's
That's
kind
our
of funny.
push.
People have been coming out of the woodwork, like, to support us in our messenger on our Facebook page, and they've been just giving us the dirt.
And a lot of the stuff we don't want to know.
Nope.
Because we don't want to be involved in any of some of this stuff that's going on. But
Right.
you know, we start asking ourselves, are we a fool for standing up for what we think is right and what's ours? Or are we doing the right thing by not backing down?
I can assure you, you're doing the right thing by not backing down.
Well,
I wouldn't either.
Well, because it's not just impacting us. There's other people who are doing the same thing right now. And there's other people who have reached out to us saying that they want to do what we're doing, that they can't afford to buy a house right now. There's nothing available to rent. And if there was, the price is too high. They're priced out.
The average income in this area for an individual person is about $18,000. They are never going to buy a $300,000 home.
No.
Oh, that's the other thing. So at the beginning of all this, they threatened us that they wouldn't allow us to build a home on our property. And then on January 1st of this year, they made good on that threat. Our property parcel is 2.98 acres, and they just raised the minimum building requirement for development of agricultural land, which is what ours is, to a minimum of 3 acres. So now we can't build a house at all.
Unless we rezone our property to residential, but then we can't have our farm.
It's 0.02 acres.
Yep. It's 800 square feet.
That's the difference.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that is so underhanded and sneaky.
Yep. And
wow.
that was a decision that was made by the county commissioners. It wasn't like the people voted on that. And we didn't move into an HOA because we didn't want to be managed by an HOA. And they are selectively enforcing their made-up codes.
So we've got campers that people are living in that have been given permission to live in their campers by the building inspector, code enforcement officer, what have you. We've got houses that don't meet the 1,200 square foot requirement because they're buddies with the building inspector. If you're not in, you're not in.
Wow.
And we're not in. So.
Wow. None of those other RVs live next to your neighbor.
No, but you can drive down the main road, 278 coming in from Dallas. And there's 5 that you can see coming into Polk County, just right out there.
And one of them actually does look like a tent city on a hill.
Yeah, and God bless those people. They're not bothered.
But we have pictures, but we won't release the addresses because we don't want to hurt these people.
Right. You just want to show examples that this is a normal thing in the area.
Yeah, right. we don't want other people to be harassed just in case.
See, and I'm a little bitter because these people know what's going on and they're watching us get railed and they're being real quiet. And I understand that they're scared that they're going to get in some kind of trouble or be messed with or whatever, or some retaliation against them. So I'm kind of, I kind of want to put them out there, but I'm not going to.
I get that urge. And I think it's honorable to not do that. I think, the first person to bust through the wall always gets bruised,
Oh yeah. And the nail that sticks up gets hammered first.
There you go. Yeah. But things won't ever change if people like you don't stand up for themselves. And
absolutely,
they can intimidate. They've clearly intimidated people and forced them into doing things that they didn't want to do, and forced them to live ways that they didn't want to live. But I understand that it's extremely painful and it's lasted a long time, but it is a admirable and needed thing to do what y'all are doing. And we, Libertarian Party, is in full support of y'all.
Thank you.
We're going to keep spreading your story far and wide, for as long as we can until it gets resolved. Speaking of that, what can people do to help? What can we do to help?
If you know of a real estate attorney that can help us try to get back on the property, that's one of our goals right now, is to so we do have some funding that we've got set aside that could go towards it. Like I said, after Marjorie Taylor Greene posted that we didn't own the property on all of her social media, our fundraising pretty much stopped. But we have our in savings what we have so far to go towards it. So a real estate attorney we need.
Yep. As far as we on our on our Facebook page, we have
Call to actions to call the county commissioners.
that would help too. We've had there's that. There's we have a GoFundMe. We don't like using.
Swapped over
Did we?
to
Yeah, we didn't want to use it anymore because
the Give Send Go.
Give, send, go.
After GoFundMe's thing with the Canadian truckers,
Yes, good call.
we let go of our GoFundMe right after we finally got it published in a news story too. Like it couldn't have been the worst timing. But we moved over to Give Send Go, and the Give Send Go is linked on our Facebook page. And then what else do we need to do?
no, we'll take.
I don't know. We've tried to schedule a protest before. We have petitions. We've been told that we have to have wet ink signatures, that they don't accept digital signatures because people can create fake emails.
Yeah.
And so they want wet ink signatures. So I've got 2 notebooks, people who are local and people who are out of town. But every time I try to post an event on the event page, they censor me and they won't post the details of my event.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh my
Yeah, but
gosh.
anytime if we post something that's factual, that kind of doesn't put whoever's doing the wrong in a bad light, if they're on the in group, they delete that comment. So
Wow.
if we say something that's just like, oh, you're doing a great job in downtown Rockmart, they're gonna let that stay on there. But if we say, hey, this guy's a crook and he's your county commissioner, they'll delete that in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So
my goodness. Okay, well I'm gonna when I edit this video, I'll put all the links in the description. I'll put the links on the screen. We're gonna try to get as much publicity for y'all as we can.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Do y'all have anything else you want to talk about before we go? Amy, it looks like you're scrolling through some stuff.
Oh,
So I have these in digital format. This is the judgment against us. It is the agricultural district code that we printed out to show to the code enforcement officer. It is the copy of the citation and his original court date that they then moved up, the copy of his trial hearing notice where they moved it up.
So I actually have the judge. She goes, if you want to appeal this, you go right ahead, and gave me a big old smirk walking out the door. So I started the appeal process about 3 hours after that, and got the judge, the Superior Court Judge Lim Ming Lim. I say names backwards. I think I'm dyslexic, verbally dyslexic. To accept the appeal, so I went down to the courthouse to pay the money to have the paperwork transferred to magistrate to Superior Court. It's not ready. So,
well,
okay.
first she said in that paperwork that we were not supposed to appeal it to Superior Court.
Yeah, the judge was very upset that we didn't appeal it to planning and zoning, that we appealed it to Superior Court.
Yeah.
And I knew where I was going to get with planning and zoning, which is why I appealed it to Superior Court.
And then she seemed very upset.
Yeah, she was very upset
that the judge accepted our appeal.
Yep.
And then they gave us the runaround. They kept saying that we had to pay Superior Court. And Superior Court said, no, you have to go to magistrate. Magistrate will send it over.
So the last time I got up there, they said, oh, we're not ready. When we're ready, we'll send you the thing. So I've been up there like 3 times. I think I videotaped 2 of them going up there.
Yeah, and he wasn't employed yet.
Yeah, I wasn't working. I was in between jobs, and I just started, but I was waiting for my first round of checks to come in.
Waiting for the first round of checks.
So the judge goes ahead and sends this order. Now, we don't have an address, so if you're going to mail something to us, we're not going to get it because we don't have an address now. We're living in an RV park.
They refused to give us an address for our parcel because it would be confusing to EMS.
So basically, if we call EMS,
so confusing.
Yeah, what's your address? I don't have one. Okay, we'll be right there. That sounds confusing. But so anyhow, she sends the order that if it wasn't paid by a certain date, that it was going to be thrown out of court, and that's what happened.
He didn't have a paycheck by the arbitrary date that she set.
Even though I had cash 3 times up there.
Yeah.
Not knowing how much the actual amount was because they wouldn't tell me, and not knowing who to pay because they wouldn't tell me. One time they told me I said, well, what kind of deadline do I have? They said, that's an attorney question.
Yeah. And we don't have an attorney.
So I was like, okay, great. You guys are helpful.
Yeah. And then my favorite was the email came in, like it was like right after the holidays. So the court was closed all the way up until the day the payment was due. Oh, and then he didn't have a paycheck until the following Friday.
Oh, so yeah. When I went to court and I had to defend myself, they actually opened up court in Polk County, Georgia, just for me that day. Nobody else was seen. They rushed me up, so I had 4 days to get an attorney, but they was closed down because of holiday and COVID.
Yeah, they weren't even trying criminal
They
cases.
weren't trying criminal cases. There was DUIs that were over a year old that they've been waiting on. But they opened up court on my court date for just me to prosecute me, and then closed it back down after I was done.
Goodness gracious. There's just no words. Like,
yeah, I can't believe it either. If we didn't video record this stuff and write everything down, I wouldn't believe it either.
And like I said, so I have these where I did like tiny scanners, so I can send them to you. And we also have like screen grabs of some of the conversations, like where the county commissioner threatened me. I took screenshots of that conversation and I posted it on a Facebook page.
mm-hmm.
And the reason we thought if they're going to get this dirty, how far are they going to go? We had a couple, actually more than a couple people tell us, say, hey, lock your car doors. Make sure there's nothing in your vehicle before you leave, that you will get drugs planted on you. And it just so happened around that time, there was a gentleman that had his vehicle parked at the hotel up here and had one of the Ring cameras outside.
Mm-hmm.
And the officers were actually going in and out of his vehicle. Now, I didn't see what was in their hand when they were going into the vehicle, but they were definitely illegally going into this guy's car.
And he caught them on the Ring.
He caught them on the Ring, and then he actually got rid of the drugs as soon as he found them the next morning, and has been trying to get the GBI involved and everybody else. Now, 2 of those officers that were involved, I guess, don't work for the county anymore. So who knows? But
yeah, if anybody knows how to get somebody to investigate government, like who in government investigates themselves, I don't know, something needs to happen.
Wow. Yeah, something clearly needs to happen.
the one threat that they haven't, that we've been told that they will do, this is by locals, that they'll use DFACS or child welfare against us as a weapon. They have not done that yet. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a guy in a couple weeks about a case like that. It's crazy. People will do anything to get what they want.
Yeah, I don't think the county realizes how strong in our resolve we are.
Yeah.
And most people back down.
I mean, we're not the Bundys yet. Like, we're not gonna be
hopefully not ever
doing an armed human wall.
I've had offers. I've had offers. Guy said, I could have 300 men standing around your property. Put your camper back. I'm like, I'm not quite there yet.
But we get closer.
Yeah, you're in a good state for that. Georgia boys are good with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, I'm very sorry for y'all's current situation. We're going to, like I said, promote it, try to get people to look at it, try to put some pressure on Polk County. Yeah. Do y'all have anything you want to say before we sign off here?
I can't think of anything. I think we talked about everything.
Well,
I'm sure there's stuff we completely forgot or missed.
I do just want to, I don't know if any of them listen, but anybody who has contributed to our fundraising already, anybody who has put our story in front of somebody else so that they could see it, anybody that signed our petitions, just thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For every little thing that you have done. It has made us cry. It has made us we're so humble and thankful for the show of support and comment sections. Like, you have no idea how much it means to see the ones out there supporting us that are.
Oh yeah, a lot better than the stuff I read on Reddit. That was horrible.
Oh, and poll.
Don't go on Reddit.
No. I was like, hey, they're talking about me on Reddit. I'm like, what do you mean I should put a bullet in my mouth? You guys are horrible.
Yeah, don't go on Reddit to try to find solace for anything.
No. Some of the stuff they said was pretty messed up, but also kind of funny. So,
yeah, I mean, there's some funny things, but it's mostly just messed up.
Yeah, it's trash.
Yeah. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for joining me. I really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your very busy day from corralling your goats.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll try to get y'all some help. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Free Georgia Podcast. We'll see you next week.